It's real, everyone.
All right.
Welcome to the first, I can say inaugural. There will be more than 2 episodes of the show. Episode of the VODcast. Welcome. I'm Edge, joined here by Badgoblin and Commando. If you guys want to introduce yourselves here, give a bit of an introduction. Welcome to the show. We're here.
Yeah,
it's
here.
a pleasure to be here. I'm Badgoblin. I am a Tetris staffer, commentator. Some might know me for bad puns. Some might know me for worse openers. But happy to be here. Happy to talk about the community.
Yeah, and I'm Commando. Also a Tetris commentator, albeit probably on like the other side of Tetris compared to Badgoblin. Also a moderator for Enhance. Very active within the TEC space. You know, just a lot more of the core guideline stuff. But you know, I'll just pop into Tetrio every now and then.
Yeah, so this episode's a bit interesting here because main thing that we're going to be talking about, you know, we might whirl around a bit, but the main point is we want to kind of reflect on and just talk about the Tetrio World Championship event that concluded a few months ago. We've all been involved in that in different ways. Both of you commentated. You guys have great voices, and I was in the pits. I was running the streams. So there we go.
Hey, production was good though.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Because it was a pain.
A lot of things went well there.
Yep. So I just want to say, first and foremost, before we move into the actual topics, thanks to everyone who's coming out for the first episode. I really do appreciate it. Brand new show. Hopefully we can see some success with this as we move forward. And yeah, we're streaming it on YouTube. Kind of interesting. I think most Tetris community podcasts have been streamed on Twitch before. I think this is the first one actually streamed on YouTube. So yeah,
breaking new ground.
Hopefully y'all can kind of adjust to that. Hopefully it's not like too weird or anything. But yeah, in chat we got Badgoblin named as a DPC and 4-wide enthusiast, and Commando noted as an F-Zero and Lethal League enthusiast. You're into Lethal League?
What? I love Lethal
I'm not
League.
actually okay. That's very interesting because like I do play Lethal League. I wouldn't call myself like big on it.
I'm a huge Lethal League Blaze fan. I played that game
Lethal
once,
League is
and I was in love. The music too, soundtrack bangs.
Banger.
I haven't actually seen much of Lethal League. Maybe I have to educate myself. I can't be the odd one out here.
Look, it's just imagine baseball, but your goal is to kill the other player. No, you're a big baseball fan. No, you're a big violence fan.
You already had him sold on baseball.
The overlap's there.
Big baseball fan, dude. Don't talk to me about trying to watch the MLB championships last season. I don't want to hear about it. Fucking Phillies. God damn it. All right.
Look, I got one thing to say on the matter, and that's let's go Mets. All about the Mets, baby. Love the Mets. And that's the official take that I'm coming in with.
That's crazy. But yeah, I've heard a bit about Lethal League. Seems a bit interesting. Maybe I'll take a look. It's $14 though, so I don't know, man. $14. It's kind of stiff. Just a little bit. But yeah. What isn't stiff is this conversation topic, Tetrio World Championship. We have a lot to talk about here. This event, just to kind of recap for people who may not have been familiar, we announced the Tetrio World Championship in, God, it's like either April or May of last year. I can't even remember. And we
it was like right after Square One.
Yeah, I think it was. So yeah, it was May. It was May of 2023. Big event trying to encompass all sides of the Tetrio community, culminating into one big championship. Basically, on paper, would have been and did end up being one of the biggest like modern competitive events that we've ever seen. So
yeah,
and that started. It all kicked off with a qualification circuit. Tetrio Cup 15 was the first tournament. We had no clue what Tetrio Cup 15 was going to become. And we locked that in as the first qualifier. Set very high standards for the rest of the event.
Yeah, I like no better way to start the qualifiers than with TC15.
And I do have a bit of a a bit of a view here. So I'm going to open up the Tetria World Championship website, and I can scroll through like all the qualifiers. I know qualifiers are one of the things that we wanted to talk about. So started with Tetria Cup 15. And then we just had a bunch of Hummingbird Nest and Full Throttle tournaments. So basically anything denoted with gold or silver was a major class tournament. And then anything blue here is minor class. And if I go here, you can see that there was qualifier point scaling. So majors always awarded a set amount of points no matter how many players were in the event. Minors had various different point awards based on how many people were playing in the event. And lands also followed a set scale. However, it was lower than online majors because the final circuit was an online event. We kind of didn't want to punish people. We kind of want to punish people by not being able to travel while simultaneously disproportionately rewarding the people who could travel. That makes sense. But we didn't kind of want to leave the people who could travel in the dark. So yeah, silver tournaments were lands. Started with Tetria Cup 15. And I think July still was like the biggest month in terms of major output for the entire circuit. So I would say
there were so many.
like it was probably a little bit top heavy if you guys agree, like in terms of like the qualifications. Like I think the biggest, most influential majors all happened at the start, which I don't think is something we expected.
I think there was a bit of a gap between months which really popped off and months which had very little activity overall, even without that sort of initial toppling. Like I know that September was another really big month where there was a lot of stuff. And that's interesting because it sort of can cause real life struggles and problems with other conflicting events for people who just aren't around as much during those times. And you've got to try to think about balancing that, but at the same time, this is a cross-org collaboration. It wasn't TWC and their team deciding directly when each of these events were happening. These were just when the events happened per org. So it's really interesting to try and balance that and make that make sense in a way where you're not putting any specific org, any specific group of players at an advantage or disadvantage in scoring.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing to point out about that September time slot is 2 of the 3 majors of the month were Tetria Journey Windflower and Stratosphere 50 happening on the same weekend. So both of these tournaments happened within less than 24 hours of each other, and the only other major was a gimmicked Infinite Finesse tournament. So not a traditional way to qualify in a sense, even though the IFT gimmicks weren't like
and oh boy, there's some uproar about that. I'm on the IFT team as well, and both internally and externally, there's a lot of talk about the sort of line of how much is too much, where we can keep the sort of IFT thing of not having super standard tournaments while also not changing it enough where it's going to be, something that gives players who wouldn't normally have the skill to participate at an event series the level of TWC a chance to suddenly, just because they played in an IFT. Like, people were complaining that IFT got to be a major at all, and people were complaining about how gimmicky the gimmick was. It was a whole big thing, but honestly, I thought it was interesting to sort of break up the standard major spread to include that. And I like that it sort of encourages players to think outside of the box and just play a little differently than they normally do, because I think that's a skill in and of itself.
And personally, I'm kind of a fan of the IFT gimmick. It is definitely out there and compared to like the formats of all the other ones where it's like a standard like first to something. But I mean, I'd love to see more like that. I think a lot more tournaments could be run like that. In terms of qualifiers, yeah, it is a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, so I remember initially when IFTs like were coming onto the qualifier map, I was one of the people who was a bit concerned about it. I basically just was a bit worried because IFTs have had some wild gimmicks in the past, and the only thing that I was concerned about is like as they were getting planned, I kind of wanted to make sure that the gimmicks weren't too out there so that it still had a similar qualifying like skill ceiling compared to a normal tournament while twisting up the gameplay a little bit, if you know what I'm saying. So that's the only thing that I was concerned about. But as Star was talking about in our chat here, like one of the gimmicks only just increased the board height by 5, which in general, when you consider like watching high level Tetrio gameplay, where there aren't a lot of like, I wouldn't say that a lot of the kill shots are like close encounters. It's not like someone's only getting tipped up one line above the board. Like normally spikes are what's resulting in these kills, right? So increasing the board height a little bit in the grand scheme of things is not going to change a lot in terms of like showing who is the higher skilled player. So I think gimmicks in terms of that, I think IFT did it really well where they were making it a bit different, but also still kind of leaving it in line with making it kind of a more normal qualifying experience rather than some of the other IFTs that we've seen.
Yeah, and I think that showed in the standings that it ended up having. It wasn't like we had random X ranks coming out from the woodwork to win it. The top 3 was promo for Adri. So it was, familiar faces definitely, both in terms of who was getting the majority of the points and just playing the most events, but also in terms of, okay, looking at this top 8 spread, these are all players who could make top 8 outside of IFT. And I think that meant that it was definitely a gimmick within reason. And, and sort of speaking of promo and points, promo was our number 1 point scorer.
Yeah.
405. Played in just a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things.
Yeah. I like
that is interesting because promo is not the best player, not even the best player who we had scoring a lot of points. Like, I don't think it's contentious to say that Diao is far and away better than Promo as a player, but Promo ended up with more points. And that raises the important question of how should playing more be weighted? Because Promo didn't have all number 1 placings, sure, had a lot of them, but what it came down to in the end was that it was high placements in a lot of events, more so than it was placing the highest in a few. And you've got to wonder, how much should that consistency count? At the end of the day, if this is going to determine how you start off in the main event, how should that be weighted?
Yeah, this is something that's really contentious in planning. But Commando, you can go ahead. I want to hear what
yeah,
you say.
what I think, like what we ended up with the whole top 3 majors, top 5 minors. I think that really I think that was like a good balance between keeping, like, encouraging people to play more and also like rewarding high placements. Because of course you don't want literally every single tournament to count towards it, because some people might only be able to play in like 5 tournaments while someone else plays in literally every single qualifier. And that'll create just a huge imbalance between the two. With this, it's like, okay, like you did well in these majors, and like you could play more to get even better, but like of course they're just gonna drop your lowest placements and just keep a few ones into consideration. I think that overall was a good way to balance it, because I mean, it, like, you could see the what's it called? You could see the point distributions based off of like how people placed in tournaments. Because like I remember for the longest time, like CZ was like in the top 64, like top 10 even for like several of the tournaments, and that was just because he placed first in TC15. Of course, he didn't like end up playing in TWC because he retired before that, but like I think when activity increased and more people qualified, it really, like, I think the formula really started to show like how well it was actually like thought out.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the concerns with like the point scaling system was definitely the quantity over quality part, right? And one thing that I think we noticed, which was just like one thing that I wish we could have alleviated but wasn't possible, is if we let me see if I can if I can pull this up reasonably, because with how the website's UI right now is for TWC with all the final stuff, it's kind of hard to show like the individual stats. So I'm gonna try my best here. So we see Diao was second in points with 390. Promo was first with 405. So we'll show that. Diao got 300 of his 390 points from major tournaments, first placing in 3 golds. So he got a first place in Strato 50, a first place in TJ Windflowers, so those 2 back-to-back events, and then a first place in Tetra Cup East 2, along with first places in several of the other gold events, but it took your 3 most recent stats and then grade the rest of them out. But only played in 3 of these minor tournaments. And where Promo kind of came ahead in this was, as you can see, got 15 less points in the major side, but 30 more points just by playing in 2 more Stratospheres and winning them. Even though they weren't giving out the maximum point amount. So one of our goals that we wanted to set as well with this was increasing community participation in non-bannered tournaments, which I think was successful. If you, at least in the beginning, it was successful. If you look at the early Stratospheres, the first like 2 months of Stratospheres, Radiance, and Full Throttles, they all had considerably more players than beforehand, which I think was pretty cool to notice and pretty cool to see. The problem is that over time, as people earned their points from the minors, they were not incentivized to keep participating, which means that it was just kind of extra steps for these guys to organize their events, and there weren't much benefits seen. I think the extra viewership on their streams was still seen by this time, but extra participation was not there up until like the bitter end. If people wanted like extra points, then they might have came back in and tried to scram for a few more points. So that's one thing that was kind of a blessing and the curse with like the minor point system. Of course, more people were participating in those Hummingbird Nest tournaments, and even like it boosted the TWS Opens when they came back. I think it literally incentivized TWS Opens to return as a series for that organization, which is kind of cool because I wanted to see like more weeklies. This is just as a personal hope when we were starting this event. But over time, the returns were kind of diminishing. And at least in terms of planning for the next time, we're considering swapping to like a guaranteed spot qualification system where each major will be pre-scheduled and will guarantee like 1 qualification spot to the winner, or everyone on the podium will qualify, something like that. Kind of how Square 1 qualifiers have worked, if you guys remember those. Yeah. So that's just also something that we've considered. We've considered dropping the point system entirely because while it was good to kind of incentivize participation, over time it fell off. And in the, like, of course, once you get your 3 majors, the highest that you're confident in placing, then you're probably not going to play in these majors anymore. So it's not really incentivizing participation. It's just going the other way around. And of course, there are also drawbacks to this system of single qual spots, but at least how I see it right now overall, I think it would be better for next time. I'm curious what you guys think.
So
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's interesting that you talk about how people are no longer incentivized to play, because that had sort of reminded me that this isn't really an optional thing. You accrue points automatically. There was no opt-in, there was no whether you're looking to participate, and that ended up mattering. That meant that there were players who just wanted to play in tournaments, but they couldn't because they knew that their score would be submitted to TWC. Or there were players who just wanted to play in tournaments and didn't care about TWC and knocked players down placements because of whatever tournament they just happened to play it, because they weren't really concerned with the schedule of what was what. So it's sort of interesting to consider how the impact of wanting versus not wanting your score to be submitted and having the choice or not having the choice to have your points registered impacts how players made those decisions whether or not to participate in events. Because at the end of the day, the goal of this event is, as much as it is to be a culmination, it's also to be a sort of jumping off point, which grows the scene and helps bring orgs together. And if you don't have the sort of lasting effect of having more people interested in orgs, having more people wanting to participate and help out as players and wanting the scene to actually grow, then at the end of the day, you've arguably worsened things. You've disincentivized players to play in the very tournaments that you're working towards promoting. So it raises an interesting question. And I think the guaranteed qualifier spot is very interesting. And I think giving players like a choice to opt out of that if they are selected, and that spot opening up and maybe disqualifying them from separate points or whatever it ends up being, could be something interesting to think about.
Yeah, that's also it's also an interesting thing to bring up. Like if you want to opt in and you actually want to qualify for the World Championship, or if you want to play in a tournament that kind of does not have any of that affiliation of, which is also interesting you bring that up, because to an extent that's also like a decision that the organizer was kind of making when they were opting in the tournament. Did they want to get the benefits of having the higher viewership, or potential higher viewership and higher player count of being affiliated with TWC, or would they rather kind of grab more players casually by not kind of affiliating their tournament? And I don't think any like major events went on that did not affiliate their event with TWC, which was interesting to see, because of course we kind of had an idea of where the majors were going to fall in schedule, but most people were just scheduling their majors being a part of the TWC, which was also interesting to see. So yeah, another interesting thing that's brought up with how the point system ran this time is majors did not scale with their amount of entrants, and someone in the chat said that personally they thought that majors should have some player scaling like the minors, but to a more limited or certain extent, which is something that we did think about at the beginning. I was actually against this. I was against this happening when we were first planning the event. So that's kind of something interesting to bring up, and I feel like I could explain why I was against that. So my thought process there was that I would not want like a major organizer in the TWC to have like someone be less incentivized to like play in their tournament, because one of the side goals of the TWC was also to increase community participation in events, right? Like people who only play Tetrio Cups, maybe broadening their horizon, try playing in a Journey, try playing in an IFT, stuff like that, try playing in Stratospheres. So that was kind of a secondary goal of organizing the event. It was trying to get people riled up in the community. And my thought was, if your major scale by like 256 plus got a boatload of points, but if you're like 64 to 96, you're not playing as much. Some people like DL, for instance, would probably skip those lower player count tournaments, and that's not something that, at least in my eyes, I wanted to see. I wanted people to feel like they should try playing in these tournaments that they're not traditionally looking at. Should try playing in these new series that we're starting up, like Crimson Coliseum was a brand new tournament. And because it was a brand new tournament, might not attract as many players as a long-standing series like Tetrio Cup. Therefore, someone might not try playing in T-Flat's event, and I just wouldn't want that to be hurt, especially when they're putting all that effort into the World Championship affiliation. I want these players to get rewarded for coming out the same way that you get rewarded for coming out to a Tetrio Cup. But it also does kind of make people feel like, man, I'm grinding through this 300-player bracket, and I'm getting the same reward as someone who only had to fight through 55 players. There are ups and downs to both of it, and we realized that through running our first like circuited event as a community. I think we've learned a lot from this, and that's why I also thought guaranteed qual spots were like a good thing as well, because the guaranteed qual spots, at least how I pitched the idea, and of course this is still being worked on, there's not another TWC until 2025, like one of the things that we were thinking about is that based on the historical status of the event, you would be assigned an amount of qualifier spots that you'd give out, which works similar to how the Panda Cup was ran when that was being ran. Yeah. So, like, for example, if you historically ran, like, a large Smash tournament, you'd be given more spots. Like, the Big House 10 was given more spots than, let's say, Let's Make Moves Miami was given. Because Let's Make Moves Miami is known as a smaller, low-key event. Its entrant count history as a series was lower, and its expected turnout was lower. So it only got, like, 1 or 2 spots compared to the 3 or 4 that Big House was given for qualification, for example. So under this like benchmark, Tetrio Cup would have been like a 3 or 4 qualifier spot premier tournament, but something like an IFT would have 2 or 1 spots that would be given out, just proportional to the amount of players that would be interested. So you can still fight for the top, but it's just based on the estimated like entrant count and the estimated difficulty of the bracket. So that was more of my thoughts on that pitch. But either way, I think there is merit to saying that next time the majors will have to be scaled in a certain way where they're all not rewarding the same amount.
Yeah, I guess you bringing that up was like kind of one of my concerns about a guaranteed qual spot sort of reward for tournaments, because like if the whole plan is to do another like 64 player like final bracket, having like each major with like 4 qual spots is kind of cutting it close. So it's like, I was just worried like maybe towards the end, like there would be an issue of, oh, there are a lot of majors, but there's like not enough qual spots. Of course, that would be like scheduled probably ahead of time, because I mean, all tournaments should be scheduled ahead of time. but yeah, with having like a proportional scaling based off of like how many people show up, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that was a lot of talk about like the point system, and one thing as well, like I'm sure our other guys here, Commando and Badgoblin, are like loosely looking at chat as well. So if you have any questions or points that you might want to be brought up, just drop it in the live stream chat. We're gonna be checking that out. Not obviously reading chat, like a more casual stream just to keep the discussion flowing, but if we see some good points that you guys want talked about, we'll toss them into the discussion. Just to kind of keep it a bit more fluid like that also helps us out too. I'll do this little plug while you're here. If you're not already subscribed to the Edge TE YouTube channel, go down there and sub. We're going to be doing these weekly, most of the time on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to see more of these, you've enjoyed it so far, be sure to subscribe so you can get notified of future VODcast episodes. We're going to be working hard. We're going to be working hard on this one. Interesting one here. Wonder if some points fading would be super catastrophic or a workable idea. So that kind of already was happening if you noticed what was going on. But basically what happened, and it didn't effectively matter in the long run, but basically your 3 most recent highest results would show up. So like if Diao won Tetrio Cup 15, it would not have showed up in the end because Diao played in so many majors and they got first in all of them. But having point decay would be, I personally would be against that, because especially if it was just set by hard data in the calendar, like those points would effectively be useless. Like you're playing, but for what? You might as well wait and just play later. Unless it's just like if you hold these points, or if you have like 4 but like something drops off, it would be something to kind of logistically work out. It'd take a lot more thought than just an on the whim question, but I don't really see that happening, because at that point then it's like, why would your circuit be so long if the points are going to drop off? Well, I'm curious if you guys have any other opinions on this.
No, that kind of just explained everything.
Yeah, there's the whole feeling of, well, why did it matter then? Why did I do it?
Yeah.
Like, it would just feel very discouraging as a player to put in the effort of playing in and winning a tournament and then having your points be sort of less valued later, which I think kind of gets back to the original problem of encouraging player participation.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and then also Star brings up this point about how it could be like exploitable and stuff like that, which is something that we'd want to avoid. But speaking of decay in a way, I know this is one of the other points we wanted to talk about. Something big that TWC did was in the playoffs, the set length of each match progressively got longer as the event continued. Which was something interesting. You've never seen sets this long before. So let me see if I can pull up the brackets and kind of show you all what was being worked with, just as far as the structure. So, all right, here we go. Pulled up the bracket here. So basically how this worked out is your group stage played out like any normal bracket. So you had first to 11 plus 2. Notably, some interesting results happened there. Fort versus Togaya was a
Yeah.
wild one. It was a fucking movie.
Hmm.
And then when you move through pools, you move into the main event, which was best of 3 first to 11 non plus 2 sets. And then grand finals was best of 5 first to 11 sets. So this was pretty interesting. It kind of unlocked an endurance in the player that we've never really had to see before. I think the longest set that ever happened before this, and the most recent time it was employed, was Reg Evolution's first to 15 grand finals. And I think that is the longest grand finals that happened, or the longest set period that happened until this tournament. And there might have been another one, but I think first to 15 was the longest set that we had. So one thing that I just want to wonder, because I was also one of the people who was like kind of one of the like rats behind the scenes working on this specific kind of thing. This is something that I had a part in pitching. What did you guys think of these long sets? First on commentary, but also like as a viewer, and how you would feel like a player would take it.
As a commentator, personally, I don't really have like I don't have like any real qualms about set length. It is like, I don't know, I'm kind of weird in that way, I suppose, because like I don't like any match. I like matches of any length, just as long as they're engaging, as long as they're tense between the two players, and like I'd say like basically all of these matches were like, all of these matches had some good competition between the two playing
I won't lie
in
to
them.
you. There are some rough ones in there. I couldn't say it with
There were some rough ones, but like even
I
like
think most of those happened in like the group stage though, which were like the
Mhm.
normal length sets.
Yeah, the group stages were probably the roughest, but like in the round of 16 onward, it was like I'm kind of hard pressed to say that there was like really a real stinker of a round, because even if there were matches like let me just see again, there was like Blarg versus Fortisim, where like Blarg just took it 11-1. Like even then there was still a fight from Fortisim, and it was still intense to watch and still intense to commentate.
Yeah, for sure.
Though I can say there have been times where I've personally kind of grown tired of a set just because it's been lasting so long. I remember there was one match in, I think, WPL Columbus 2022. I think it was in the Tetrio bracket, but because it had the +2 formula, it was just a long back and forth, and I think it went till like 3 a.m.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I might be remembering things wrong. I'm not the best with remembering things, but I remember that set going really long, and I had to leave the venue like in the middle of the match because it was just like I couldn't stay up for all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, Badgoblin, any thoughts on the long sets?
Yeah, so I have very differing opinions of this from my commentator side and from my viewer side. On the viewer side, I love a long set. I think that just gives me more time to get invested. I'm on the edge of my seat, the what of my seat, just wondering what's going to happen next. I'm locked in. I don't know. I feel like a long set gives me time to understand. It gives the commentators time to do more color stuff, which is going to give me info on players I may not know about. I'm going to get filled in, and it's going to give me sort of time to I don't know, it builds hype. The longer a set is, the more I'm wondering how it's going to end. On the commentary perspective, damn. Casting that shit is hard. I am a commentator who is just trying to be all in at all times. I am going to be hype. I'm going to be shouting. I'm going to be talking. I'm going to be doing a lot of things, which culminated in me losing my voice for a bit after TWC. I never lose my voice. That was crazy. But I was just, I can't not be hype. I'm right in the stands along with y'all, and I just can't. I'm too invested, and it low key was causing my downfall during TWC because I'm coming like 50 games in a row, and screaming for 50 games in a row is gonna not be the greatest. But in terms of just like whether it should continue, as much as I did lose my voice, I would say yes, it probably should continue because I don't know. I feel like it just gives it more weight. Not only does it give the players actual time to adapt more and it's just better for getting a close match, but it just makes it feel more impactful. It's something special that TWC is doing that separates it from other events. And I really liked that as something which sort of, filled in even the concept of just sets overall. Like seeing the set screen where someone would have to take a match and that wouldn't be the end, you'd have to do more. That's so hype. Seeing like a win happen and being like, okay, they got that win, but the other player can come back. Like one of the matches that sticks in my head is OSW Dormy in coming out of the pool. That was a crazy match. OSW was on the back foot and brought it all the way back, and that literally would not have been possible. Dormy would have won already if it was the normal set length. But because of the adjusted format, OSW had the time to adapt, to lock in, and eventually get the win because of that. And I think that's something really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like that's think... one thing that I thought in the organizational Commando. If you want to go ahead first, I can.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like that's something that they had in mind when you guys designed like the match formats. Like you had that sort of. I don't know how to put it into words exactly. I guess that sort of like that hype and that tension. I guess you had that sort of thing in mind when you were like thinking of the match lengths.
Mm-hmm.
You can correct me on this if.
So basically, when I was thinking about these, I was just like, and I don't think I might not have pitched the best of 3 or the best of 5 part when this is being discussed, but I just knew in my heart that it had to be longer than the first 2, like 11+2, and I think there's a little bit of pushback about this, of course, because it was just like, it was so long compared to the original, but I was just like, if you're playing in Worlds, right, the World Championship should not feel the same as competing in a regular tournament, but with more viewers and more money associated. There should be something else kind of attached to that. And in Square One, like in like top 8, their first to 10 TEC sets, this shit is unheard of. All right. And when I was commentating Summit Square One, the first year it ran, I thought I was going to turn into a skeleton by the end of it, but it ended up being better than I thought. For TEC, it ended up being better than I thought with the long sets. I knew that it had to be transitioned here, and then I was just thinking of like Smash, and I was like, okay, some Smash tournaments do best of set format for their like longer events, so I thought that kind of had to come in here. So I was just thinking, like, if you make it all the way to the top 16 of the World Championship, you need to be kind of putting in some legwork to be able to secure your spot and to move on. Not only does it give it more of like a grand weight when you're watching it, but it gives it more of like an emotional weight for the players. Like you get a weight off of your chest when you clear your first set, but there's still more to go. And it's just like when you make it all the way that far, then like I just could not see a world where we were still doing first to 11s or even just doing normal sets. I felt like it had to be best of some kind, even if the game count went down and it was like best of 3 first to 9s, or like best of 3 like first to 7s even. Like that would still result in more games played than like 2-11, because to win you'd have to win 21 games. And it just kind of creates that like mental division and a bit of a sort of emotional checkpoint for the player as well. Like when you're watching it, like you have this kind of short little halftime break when you're watching your favorite set. I'm like, oh my god, he's halfway there. Is my favorite player going to clutch it up in the second set? Is going to win this? It's mainly I see it mainly being like a change in the mental, because obviously when you break the tournament down into so many weekends and so many parts, the amount of time this person's putting in on a weekend is going to be equivalent to like a non-best of set like thing. Like each day you're putting in the time of a regular top 8. You're playing the amount of games that you'd play in like a top 16 or a top 8 of a regular event, but you're just breaking it up even more into these longer games. So I just felt like it put a lot more weight on the situation, and it was like more content, more hype for the viewer. You're not going to see an event other than Worlds, unless there's some like big third-party invitational, which I don't see happening. So you're probably not going to see an event other than Tetra Worlds that has sets like that ever. And that was just like that was the point of it. I don't think that you can expect it to be like another walk in the park, right? Like it's not just another walk in the park. It's not another tournament where Blarg can cruise through and like 11-3 everyone. You need to put those dominating scores through twice. Like for example, in that OSW versus Dormy set, it wasn't even in top 16, but because you had to play the reset match, it was 12-10. OSW came back on that 12-10, and Dormy lost footing in that second set, like lost 11-4. That is pretty damning right there. But the first set was close. It requires you to keep composure and fortitude and endurance throughout the entire time. I also think of the players like Westell who play extremely fast and might burn out their tank in the first set. It punishes them in the second set for not conserving their energy. And that's also a skill that I thought players needed to exercise more. Because in certain tournaments, players get long breaks. They have a lot of time to warm up comfortably, and they can just burst through their entire sets because they're that good. And here you couldn't necessarily burst through your entire sets. Some players had to conserve, and I like seeing that as well.
Yeah, I think with this format, it really helped bring out like I don't want to say truly the best of the best, because like there's the whole factor of like endurance versus bursting, and it's like each one has their own merit, but it's like I think it showing the endurance is definitely something worth like noting when it comes to players, because we do see a lot of the quick just one set matches.
Yeah, and I think Random Guy's point in chat's also pretty important. Having a comeback factor as a possibility is what made me love TWC. When you think of watching like a normal first to 11 Tetrio set, it's very hard to notice like any specific moments where a comeback is like possible. And this in a way kind of manufactures like your turning point. Like if you drop a set really badly, you're given a few minutes to kind of reflect and a little break before you go back and lock in. Which is also something that I thought was a big benefit here. It also gives like viewers who may not be paying attention to the pace of the game as much as more experienced people. Like I'm sure a lot of people who are watching the VODcast right now are more enthusiast viewers who watch a lot of the game. But if you're a newer viewer, you kind of get that halfway point between like the best of 3, or whenever you're getting to a third set point where it kind of slows it down and allows you to reflect and notice when the comebacks are happening. It allows you to like think about who you're rooting for and kind of think about what your favorite player needs to do next to take the set, which is something that I think was pretty special about that format as well. And yeah, curious if you guys agree on that one, because like the whole comeback point not being as obvious in like a full set may not be something that people agree with, but it's just something I personally have felt over time.
I mean, honestly, with how a lot of tournaments have been run, like throughout the scene as a whole, it's something that I didn't really think about all that much. And with this, it was just like, oh, okay, so like this is actually something that can happen if we decide to like allow the format to like flesh out. And I'm not sure those are the right words for it, but like once you have the formula out, and like that gives a lot of players the potential to like start to have that sort of just the ability to sort of just come back or like test someone's endurance.
Yeah, that's also something nice about it as well. But yeah, there was a pretty big discussion about set length. We talked about
Yeah,
a
pretty
lot
hype.
of it there. And yeah, one thing that I think helped a lot there was those custom graphics that kind of gave you an overview of the set.
Oh my,
And this is something
oh
that we
my
wanted
goodness.
to talk about as well.
Oh my,
The custom graphics that there are a lot more. This is something as well that I want to highlight. There are a lot more people than just Osk who put into the UI design. Even though in game, of course, Osk, the lead developer of the game, is gonna have like the most like part of it. And Osk obviously deserves all the credit that guy deserved. But like Glitchy worked on a lot of like the website UI as well.
Mhm.
And you had like Azura and Moose doing a lot of the graphic design for the stream stuff outside of the Tetrio game. We found a brand new like amazing stinger artist who we've been working with now. Made the stingers for like Snow is Infinite and all that stuff. So a lot of brand new people contributed. A lot of brand new and older like people contributed to the visual design of TWC, but this was the first tournament that kind of had the in-game graphics integration. And of course, if any tournament was going to be the first, it would probably be the World Championship, with just a lot of cool in-game integrations, like the in-game banners and pings, like to drive people to the stream, were more elaborate than ever before. Custom board and block skins, custom animations. The versus screen for the first time in my time ever running a production was embedded in the game. There was a post-match screen which showed like the APM duration versus score of every round, highlighted who won, all that, and then you have the moon set counter at the top, which is also super hype.
Yeah.
So again, thanks to Osk and the Tetrio team for being willing to collaborate in a way that we hadn't seen before.
Like everything about the TWC graphics, I remember a few people were talking in like uncertain spaces, and they were just talking about how well done, how polished, how good everything looked. And I remember seeing that for the first time, and I'm like, I cannot wait for everyone else to see this. I think this. Like it really showed the amount of effort that went into the graphics is exactly what we got out of it. It was fantastic, and I think I don't think there's a single person out there who didn't like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that so many people enjoyed it because there was a lot of like effort put into it. I would say some people enjoyed it a little bit too much, applying like the graphics to the whole quick play lobby and shit.
Yeah, I did see it. I do think though, like it was a little silly. I'm not gonna give it too much
names.
I'm not gonna give it
but
too.
The names
I'm not gonna.
Who need to know about the podcast. That's all I'm saying.
That is true. May or may not have seen a
That's
couple
all
in the
I'm
chat.
saying.
God's him.
I'm not
okay.
naming names. You know who you are.
You know
if
what?
you are the
what?
reason that people stopped being allowed to give the TWC skin to people, or if you gave it to your Tetra League opponents without asking them first. I'm just saying, you know who you are. That's all I'm saying.
God damn.
I'm gonna play. Okay, real quick. I am gonna play a little bit of devil's advocate, at least for the quick play aspect, because like it's right. Like if it's like right around the end of it's right around TWC. So like giving people the opportunity to see it in game is, I think, okay to an extent.
Okay,
of course,
but the problem is that it wasn't programmed for 50 players.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Another
the whole goddamn game.
When it's gonna be taken away eventually. You've given them a taste of the nectar of the gods. They're gonna want that forever now.
Listen,
there were people for weeks asking, can I get the TWC skin? Can we do this through Tetrio Plus? No, it's gone. And they had to endure that. And the staff of Tetrio had to endure that.
You know what they can do? They can suck it up until the next year, you know?
Listen, all I'm saying is if you wanted to enjoy the skin, watch the stream where the skin was displayed.
That is true.
And it should only be used in like stream production. Listen, I didn't name drop NXT. The goddamn chat did.
Oh my.
I didn't name that name.
I ain't naming names, but
See, I remember someone gave it to me because I was like spectating Tetrio in game for the commentary, but then my computer started not liking that. So
But it's just like, yeah, I don't want to hang on this for too long, but it's just like, I
yeah,
don't know. I think next time
yeah,
we should, I know we're like enamored, like, ooh, pretty skin, pretty feature. Normally
yeah.
we,
No,
normally all we
that
see
is
is
completely
normal
fair.
Tetria board or Tetria board with Christmas light around it. Shouts to
hey
the winter
you,
theme.
That
hey you,
is
if you're
true.
at
Like,
home, you want to know how you use the TWC skin? Get better at the game. Qualify.
Oh yeah,
You too
so
can
true.
use the skin.
hey,
Improve.
Yeah,
I
that
would
is
say
kind of what I was.
Tetrio.tips, but that website got taken down.
Hey, what if we bought Tetria.tips and redirected it to the podcast?
Yeah, tune into the VODcast weekly for your,
Tetrio.
how to play Tetrio.
I'm gonna check Pork Bun right now and see if I can buy a domain.
Oh my
Tetrio
goodness.
tip number 1. If your opponent does DT cannon, that's when you break out the toxicity. Tetrio tip number 2. If your opponent does stick spin, that's when you break out the toxicity. Tetrio tip number 3. If your opponent does really any opener, it doesn't matter what opener, someone will hate it. That's when you break out the toxicity. Step 4. This is not binding advice, and I cannot be held accountable for any questionable decisions you make online. Use this advice at your own risk.
Oh,
Step
yeah.
5. Learn center for...
It's like those fucking like credit card recommendation videos, and then there's like not financial advice, like and like with the asterisk.
Yeah,
on it.
I'm not a stacker advisor officially.
I mean, yeah,
Oh my
I mean,
God.
whose advice is better than, the center forwarder here?
Yeah, Mr. Four Wide Broom. But
Look, all I'm saying is I'm deranked right now, so if there's ever a time to listen to me, it's when I'm at 24.6k.
24.6k question mark A of lads. Let's go. Anyway,
It's not it right now.
yeah. So another side point that we mentioned in our notes is should this become the norm? And I'm going to say no. I think it should stay special. I think this should
Yeah.
stay a special
No,
thing.
absolutely 100%.
For sure.
I,
And a random guy was talking earlier saying, looking back, I don't know how and why, maybe it's out of entitlement and looking at other esports, TWC's format and differences seem like they were needed. And yeah, I agree, but at the same time, it should not be for every major event. Because at the same time, we're still like a grassroots scene. You know what I'm saying? And, TWC is the only tournament that specifically has like a developer partnership, and of course there's an event that has like a developer partnership with like the big production and all that. Then obviously you're gonna want to spruce that up, but for each major tournament, it's not exactly needed. Our majors have been more than well viewed, and we can cite Tetra Cup 15 as the example. Had a 4-digit viewer count without having all these bells and whistles, and there are still things that we can do from our third party side, grassroots, with like web development and all that, to make like our overlays and graphics look better. And we're just continuously working on that. Of course, it's like a thing for PK, but I know other organizers like Full Throttle is doing a bunch of experimental stuff with their stream. Like Misty's recently been starting up some trying to quad stream TEC, which is crazy. All right.
That game's graphically intense. It's just, oh my goodness.
Yeah, probably need multiple systems and stuff like that to make that possible. So
Multiple
again,
2060s.
we are advancing without developer integration in our production. So I still think that there's room to move forward in that sense without necessarily being like integrated in the game. Though I still think promotional kits are pretty important and like they're kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I just realized
So-
TWC is technically not like before people like call me out. All right, Super Streamer Lobby is technically a developer partnership because Dementio
Developer of the
makes-
year. Yes, sir.
I made some custom game modes, but it's not like deeply embedded in every facet of the game where every day for 6 months when you look at the game, there's a banner that says Tetra World Championship. Diao's #1. Play in Stratosphere. And it just loops that animation every day.
Shoutouts to Stratosphere 47. Am I right?
Oh, one thing that I thought of during TWC, which I just remembered, was an interesting option would be giving viewers the ability to purchase the skin and board set as like TWC merch.
Mm-hmm.
Like having the ability for them to buy and support TWC in that way to get access to the like skin and board state as a non-player.
Yeah, and I'm sure that over time, like board and block skins being sold officially in game is something that Asuka's thought about. I wouldn't be shocked if it even comes soon. Like, I'm not saying this as someone who's privy to knowledge, because I'm not even in the fucking character system beta, which is hog wild. TO not in the character system beta, but besides that, definitely not salty. Like. Besides that, like, I just see it as a good path for the game to continue being sustainable and making revenue, so it can like hire staff and all that. And the fact that the game is even at a point where it can pay its staff is absolutely amazing. So I just want to say that like that game is definitely hype, and it's a great thing for our community to have. And along with that, as we see it grow and like continue to monetize, that's going to create even more opportunities for the community. Like, imagine if people could buy the TWC skin in game for like €5 or whatever. Like, do you know how much larger a prize pool could have been just as a factor of the skin being sold for €5? Like, that would be kind of wild. Like, imagine if 1,000 Tetrio players buy that. That is €5,000 in revenue. 20% of it to the prize pool, an extra like $1,300 to the players, and that's assuming only gets 1,000 sales. So that's
with how many people Tetrio pulls, like, could be so much bigger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's just like a hypothetical to think about for the future. But yeah, definitely on
That's
custom
ultimately...
graphics. I'm glad that it seems like most people here think that it should be like kept special, because you know. There's plenty of VOD to look back on those amazing graphics, and there will be plenty of VOD for each TWC with how long the event format is. And speaking of the event format, if you want to move on to our next bullet point that we wanted to talk about, being all the cross-org collaboration that happened during the TWC, and just the idea of the TWC itself being a large cross-org collaboration, if you want to get into that.
I think... Like, okay, I might not. I'm probably like the worst person to try and like bring this up, because, you know, being a commentator, you kind of just like talk to all the different TOs.
Mm-hmm.
But like it seemed like, but like I think like all the major like TOs in Tetris pretty much know each other. Like they've talked with each other to like some degree, and at the very least like exchanged like some conversations. So I don't think like overall I don't think it was like that. I don't think it was that bad. I mean, you can feel free to correct me on this as like two other like TOs here, but like I think
two other just me and Edge, the two other TOs.
Well, like, okay, you understand what I mean. Like you work with like TOing to
I'm TO Jason. I'll take it. I'll take the comment and move on. I'm good.
But of course, Edge here being, you know, owner of PK. Shocker, I know. But
I'd say the thing that TWC did is it's not exactly like it had instances where like it started collaboration for the first time. Like, there were still PK and MMC partnership tournaments and whatever, which is a very long-standing collaboration between PK and MMC. We're in the third year of that partnership now into 2024. Shout outs to Modern Mino Community. Great place if you're into uncapped tuning unlimited Tetris. Hit that place up. But regardless, like, those partnerships stood, but I saw a lot of new collaborations and like new people working with different orgs, like people kind of stepping in and commentating games they weren't normally commentating. I'd say this, you Commando, this is probably 2023 was the year where you probably commentated the most Tetrio you've ever commentated. I just imagine. Just as a result of TWC. So I don't think it was exactly org-to-org partnership, but I think individuals are getting more wrapped in with like different organizations. Like, some people might have commed for Infinite Finesse who never commed there before, or worked on a bracket at Infinite Finesse. I know that PK had a lot of people staffing the brackets for the first time when we were running our majors, which was super exciting to see. And it also started kind of the genesis of a partnership between us and TML, which didn't really exist before. And we hosted the LCQ together, which was really hype. So I think there were a few things through there that were kind of brand new and that we hadn't seen before. But aside from that, a lot of people are always in touch. Like a lot of the TOs are just friends with each other behind the scenes, keep in touch with each other. Even if you're not directly labeling that they're working together on an event, there's usually a lot of people behind the scenes from different orgs helping. I just think that this strengthened that principle even more than it was already really strong. And both of you guys as commentators said, I think Badgoblin ran a couple brackets here and there, especially on the Infinite Finesse side. You two can probably vouch for that a lot more than me, because I specifically was just focusing more on the PK side, just to make sure that those events were running. But I know that you two probably spread your wings a lot more in that sense.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that there is maybe 3 distinct staff teams total across the entire Tetris community. Maybe 3 of like groups of non-overlapping people. It's very, very few and far between.
Like if you just draw the Venn diagram of different tourney orgs, and then you have all the like, there's gonna be like maybe just like a few on the outside, and in the middle it's like everyone else.
Yeah, there's a lot of the same people, and honestly that's for the best. Just having people to help out is very, very useful thing across orgs. You have people like just going from staff team to staff team, helping out, being on call for various places. You have like commentators have sort of become the like freelance position, where there's commentators who just exist in the void state. They aren't part of any one team, and then when called upon will just manifest in Discord. I'm a commentator. And
a door just opens behind like a TO's office.
The person I think about that, the person I think of the most who rose in that role through TWC was probably TGK. Like they just like,
I would absolutely agree.
They just started existing and were like common for everyone, and they're not really exactly on one team. So that's pretty funny. But,
I've for a while now, ever since like Square One 2022, it was just like, oh yeah, I do stuff for PK, and then we fast forward to now, and how many different orgs, how many different orgs, and how many different tournaments.
Good luck.
I think I did one for basically basically every org that was doing a tournament. I think the few that I missed out on were IFT, and a lot of those in the Asia region, and TAWS. I think those are like the big ones.
You commentated TAWS Open 24.
Oh yeah, with Badgoblin.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah.
So made your way in there.
Not my strongest, you know. I'm just gonna say that much.
I cannot believe that
two ever TAWS events, and it was TAWS 24 with you and TAWS 69 when I wasn't even supposed to be on comms, but I somehow ended up being production because they had to run Gestress because Tetrio was getting annihilated by its servers.
Oh, I remember.
And neither Dai nor Cowbow, the two commentators, knew how to set up a private Gestress room and configure it correctly. So I went from production to Dai's babysitter to straight up just like a commentator when one of them had to leave. But then we ended up just like try-casting it. That was a blast. Shout out to the 45-minute forward ad that we did. But anyway, it's been great to get around and just see how other orgs have grown in communication and become just more open and accessible after this. Like, I know people from orgs that I hadn't known previously through TWC, just through meeting people and being in contact because we're all trying to work on this massive collaborative project. I wasn't even a part of TWC until pretty close to the launch of the main event because I'm not super central to, or I wasn't at the time, super central to any one org apart from maybe Underdogs Cup, which, you know, obviously not going to be producing any TWC majors. Keep it, Underdeck's Cup is coming through soon. That's all I'm saying. And so for that, I was basically brought on kind of last minute as a commentator, and then I was told, hey, you should go find and bring in someone else even more last minute on as your commentator partner. Said, okay. And then I brought Cowbow. Shoutouts. Came at actually a moment's notice. Pretty sure he came like 1 day before the first thing. And that was crazy. But it was just great to see that there are people willing to come around and help out and just see all of the sort of everyone coming together and just giving it their best was such an amazing thing to see.
Yeah, but speaking of unexpectedly calming a tournament, Stratosphere 47, I'm gonna bring that up again.
Oh boy.
So yeah, that tournament took place the day after WPLC Columbus, and I was brought on to calm that tournament.
Didn't that stream like run in Game Arena?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was that one. It was the one that I called into.
It's funny because Badgoblin pulls me aside as I'm about to play Tetris Party doubles with Pants for Hire, and he was like, "Hey, can I pay you $20 to commentate Stratosphere?" And I was like, I guess, sure.
Look, there was additional. Okay, there was additional context. So I was original. So they needed a commentator in person because they didn't have one. And so originally, I, having literally walked past the setup, seeing that, just straight up picked up a headset and got on the mic, just unsolicited, and was in the booth for like a solid 15 minutes. And they're like, okay, I guess. And I was just gonna calm the Stratosphere just off the rip. Straight up didn't know what tournament it was for 10 minutes after I was already in the booth. And then afterwards, I got notified by my parents that I had to leave. So I'm like, damn, well, I can't just disappear. They would have the same problem. And then so I turn and I'm asking like Azuran people, I'm like, who else is here who comms? And then I get like a list of a few people. I'm like, okay, I can probably pay one of them off, right? Like, surely I can give. It's the holy grail. No commentators ever paid. This would be a unique opportunity. So who can I pay off to commentate? And now I look around and everyone else was like in a match, and you were about to be in a match. So I like ran over and was like, "Hey, you want $20 to comment tournament?" And the rest is slightly above average history.
By the way, can I butt in and point out that the definition of booth for this tournament is like very very stretched.
There wasn't. You're sitting fully next to other people also on setups on all sides of you. There is no noise suppression at all. Anyone can walk
so it was
into
literally
the
just in the middle of the fucking game arena.
Yeah, it was funny because I believe it was Puffawuffs was right behind us playing his match, and then he popped off in the middle of it when we were trying to comment.
That's really
and he was just like, yes, and I was like,
can I tell you guys something interesting about Puffawuffs? So, like, the first year I went to WPLC in 2021, my dad went with me, and he was actually in the venue. My dad and my stepmom were actually in the venue, and that was the year that Puffawuffs was dressed up as in the Jigglypuff costume. To this day, every time I bring up a Tetris tournament, my dad will ask me, is Bad Bunny playing? In reference to Puffawuffs.
Goblin, we found your Easter name.
And I know exactly who he's talking about. Yeah, my dad calls him Bad Bunny.
Real quick, Edge, I'm gonna send you a photo.
Please
I'm gonna send you a photo.
I hope this is a picture of my dad.
If you want to pull this up, I just want to make known how scuffed the setup was for Stratosphere 47.
Yeah, but I just figured I should bring this up. Like, I figured I should finally talk about the Bad Bunny thing because I've had it on deck for years.
When I was at WPLC, my mom was talking about how she was rooting for OSW.
Oh, that's awesome.
Your mom is a real one.
Yeah, this is the setup. This is like I don't know. This is like an old ass laptop. And you might be asking, how is this laptop running Tetrio and streaming at the same time? And the answer is, it isn't. It's running Parsec to stream that's being streamed from a different computer remotely.
That's fucking awesome.
Incredible, honestly.
It was so scuffed. Awesome. That laptop is so bad.
My friend's laptop makes
oh my god
makes like a noise when it runs Tetrio on ultra graphics. Like we tried it out once just for fun. He normally runs low, and like you could within the laptop. So laptops generally, as opposed to PCs, have internal fan systems. They don't really have that traditional sort of large fan hooked up directly to it. This shit started buzzing. And we immediately all F4'd it, and we literally like, wait, we can't reopen it to change the config setting, because by the time we do that, we don't know what's gonna happen. So we had to uninstall and reinstall Tetrio on the laptop in order to reset it back to being whatever the system preferred was. But that was like terrifying, because it was like a Sisyphean task to close the game, because by the time it was buzzing, we were like, okay, we cannot do this. We tried to move the like trackpad, the mouse over to the config button, and it's like slowing down as it gets there. Like it's like you move a step and then a half step and a quarter step, and it's just slowing down trying to get there. And it's like, all right, this is not working. And we started just pressing like Command Q, and it just was not. It was not it, and it was a truly terrifying experience, because it was my stupid ass idea. So I was not ready to put forward the hundreds of dollars to replace that. But I don't know. You just trust your Feekoff score, kids. I don't know. That was a traumatizing experience.
Bro, should I run a Feekoff right now? I've never done it.
I once ran a Feekoff and got 1, and it was because the site bugged. But that was crazy to see.
I have never heard of this.
It's the good graphics test, courtesy of Osk. It generates a bunch of Kagaris, and it basically measures the speed that it can do.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, no, okay, I have seen this actually.
I'm gonna run it in Opera because my Chrome has hardware sell-off for various reasons. So I'm gonna open this up. And we're going to see my Feekoff score. Fucking VODcast exclusive right here.
Hold on, now I gotta do it as well.
Score.
Alright,
my score is probably lower because I am running I have like 70 different tabs open.
I mean, I'm running a 13,000 bitrate stream. So.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I guess.
Well, the site is not even loading for me.
Well, I think I win, because apparently my MacBook Air is the most goated of its kind ever to exist. While I have OBS Ninja, while I have iMovie open, don't ask, while I have 2 separate browsers open, while I am in this call, while I'm also watching the stream, we pull up with a 2.3 million SS rank Feekoff score. Because my MacBook is just built different, apparently. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I should be on ultra graphics on this, but I'm too scared.
Just scared of what it'll do.
All right, I'm now running.
I don't want the buzz.
Edge.
I can't get the buzz back. It can't.
Microsoft what?
Oh brother.
Oh brother.
Very meta. Edge running Edge. What does the world come to?
I guess you could call him an Edge runner. A real cyberpunk.
Oh my god, that's a new one. That's actually brand new. Literally never heard that before.
Much like
I'm on the cutting edge of puns.
Am I the only person who can't load Feekoff on my computer at any
level?
You failed the Feekoff test. How did you do that? It's a score-based test, and you got a letter F.
How did
whatever?
My Feekoff score was like 791, and then it dropped 100k. In like 2 seconds.
That's amazing. Oh my god, dude. Speaking of Feekoff and Osk related stuff, I think one of the last bullet points that we haven't covered was getting players interested in TWC. which honestly, there's not really a lot to talk about here because I'm not gonna lie, at least from my perspective, like it seemed like right upon announcement, it was like kind of an instant hit. Like
Yeah.
I will say, and this is something I've talked about before, and I'm not certain if people like actually believe me when I say this, but I was like vehemently against running a TWC in 2023. I wanted to do it this year. I wanted it to happen in 2024. But literally anyone else who I talked to thought it was the time, and I did not think it was the right time. So I was just like, all right, let's see what happens. We'll have Moose lead this project because, goddamn. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But of course, I was like still in planning and stuff, but that was more of his baby than anything. And well, I got proved wrong. I got proved so wrong because we were ready. I just didn't think it was ready from like a logistical standpoint because like after like community drama, I don't want to get too deep into it. I saw it hard for communities to agree, and I figured that would transcend into like creating a tournament with like 16 organizations involved, and I was very worried that it would just like it'd be like the first OSC affiliated official tournament, and then it would go to fucking ass water because we just didn't know how to collaborate anymore, and that was something I was genuinely worried about. And I was honestly blown away with how easy it was to work with everyone and how much people were willing to unite behind this one perspective versus like a more like local community matter, which was kind of awesome to see. I'm glad that it was easier than I thought by like several miles, and I would have never expected it to go this well. Like if it had been like a few months before, I would have never expected that. So I'm just very glad that happened. And then like immediately when we announced it, TC15 popped off. We had the July month of qualifiers. Everyone was super interested, and like all the website building was going well. The integrations were going well. People were hyped to host their majors and stuff like that. I just feel like the whole way through, like we were even a bit later than like ideal on like announcing the main event details, and it still absolutely popped off. So, I mean, even with some stuff that I was worried about, it still performed extremely well. I just think when you associate a world championship with like an IO game that's that like highly played, it's going to have some native like attraction. Like we didn't have to work hard to convince people that this was the deal. You know what I'm saying? Like we didn't have to work that hard. People already knew from the start. All the organizations involved were quality. Everyone who was involved in competitive at least like saw a tournament from one of the orgs. So I think people were pretty easily convinced. I'm curious what you guys thought as far as reception for the tournament. If you thought like the numbers were big or crazy or anything, or if you thought it performed as expected. Because of course I have my own perspectives. What like the lead org people at PK, like whenever an event does or doesn't do well, like I set my expectations based on how many people are interested. So I'm just wondering from someone who normally isn't like in that kind of viewpoint, what you all kind of think based on how the event performed.
I think my answer to was it expected or did it have crazy numbers is yes. I think it did have crazy numbers, and I think it did absolutely pop off. There was huge community viewing and interaction and support for it. And I think it is what was expected out of an org collaboration this big. This is probably the biggest single community event Tetrio has ever had. And I think it makes sense that it did as well as it did. We had the potential to reach that heights. We saw with things like TC15, and we saw with things like just cross collabs in general of one or two orgs that we had the potential to hit these numbers, but actually hitting them is a different story. There were many records broken with TWC.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like absolutely 100%. Like everything about TWC kind of like blew other tournaments out of the water, I think. And like, well, yeah, actually, no, yeah, that is true. Like there have been a few pretty big, like 4-digit viewer numbers, like tournaments. Like Square One was one of those. You said Red Revolution, right? Or
In terms of getting close to 40, the first year Square One had it across all the languages, and then TWC Recap 15 was the only other one.
yeah, Square One 23 did it cross, because I've heard mixed things about that.
No, Square One 23 had like 700 people versus the 1200 peak, so it performed a bit more modestly, but that's what I was expecting. In terms of like interest on YouTube, it has more views on YouTube than the last Square One.
Mhm. But yeah, like in terms of viewing numbers, it's yeah, no, it was definitely the biggest one we've had like so far. And I mean, even and like it also just like helped with getting a lot more of like in terms of events, it helped me as a commentator, because like there were so many more events to like start casting for. So many weeklies, and like almost like I think I did almost like every major that I could.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like I think it was a big year for like everyone involved, just in general. I think like everything about it was expected and then some. Like I want to say I don't want to say it was like completely unexpected. I think a lot of the big numbers were definitely expected, but it definitely exceeded those expectations still. I don't know. I'm not the best at phrasing out my thoughts on things.
Yeah, I get it, but I'm just glad that it did do well, because the worst thing that could happen, of course, is putting in all this effort and then it flopping. So I'm just glad that you all enjoyed it, and that we were able to kind of have the support that we needed to see to run another one in 2025. Just a bit of a question. What does everyone think of having the off year and running it like bi-yearly versus is bi-yearly even the right verbiage every 2 years? We'll just say that.
I remember this discussion when it was coming. And personally, I think that's totally fair. Like as a viewer, some might not get it, but like as someone who understands like the back end sort of thing, it's like there was a lot that went into this, and to like try and pump it out every year would cause some severe burnout, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because it took a lot of effort just to like get to the announcement, and then there were all of the tournaments that had to go through. I think if it were done yearly, a lot of people would like lose their minds, like on the organization end.
Yeah, I do agree there. Because I will just say something like, we have concerts saying that people would have liked it to be once a year because it's fun, but, putting a lot of like organizational. I would put a lot of organizational strain on every organization, because as we talked about, like pretty much every event last year was ran with TWC affiliation, like every Tetrio major, and plus it would burn out the players if they're pretty much always competing in relation to the World Championship, because then there'd only be a couple month break, and the TOs would probably take a break during those few months running Tetrio to be ready to come back and kick ass during the World Championship. So the players would have anything to compete in that's not affiliated with Worlds. And also, I'll just say this as a person who's like an organizer for other games. Like I still like, believe it or not, I still like organizing PPT and TEC tournaments. TWC left me with very little time to show any attention to those games outside of Square One last year. I wanted to run 5 PCOs. I ran 2 PCOs. I ran 1 PCO that had Tetris involved with it, and that was before TWC was announced. I felt like I was getting choked by this event as far as like my freedom to run events for other games. I wasn't able to run other Airwalkers. There's no Airwalkers after January last year, which is a big regret of mine. I feel like these in-between years can allow me to like explore these different games, and also allow me to like have time to start projects like this and keep my personal stream going again, and like look at Nightshade and all that. Like it just gives the organizers more freedom to kind of still experiment outside of having to run like a clean, I'm running an event for the TWC, like they kind of can experiment more. And they can do their more fun events like IFT auctions will still have a place that can get weekend slots and whatever without everyone trying to cram in their like majors. It's just basically to prevent burnout, and to still allow more creative freedom with the organizers, allow us to kind of still produce varied events. And also, it gives time for more innovation, but it also gives us more time to have fun, which is another thing. It's not like running TWC isn't fun, but it does limit us on some ideas. Like, again, during that time, Nizzy and the IFT crew probably held back on crazier IFT gimmicks that they want to run and will probably be running throughout this year. I had less time to run PPT and TEC, and while it's not Tetrio, those are still important games that people in the scene do love supporting. And just kind of straining the larger orgs from being able to have uninterrupted days to run those tournaments. Just thinking about this as the hand in every bucket guy that I kind of am. I'm just glad that there is an off year so I can still focus on those other games and give them attention. I'm not societally forced to like organize for one game. Like I'm not just forced to based on society and how the world's event schedule works. Like I still have time to like take breaks and run like these other events and like still play around with other games.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of other people share that same mentality. Like even me to an extent, because like it was fun casting all of the Tetrio majors and all the other quals that I did, and even like parts of the TWC final bracket. But like at the same time, Tetrio isn't really my main game, so it like there are a few things that felt limiting about it, and like there are some things I missed about other games, and because of TWC, it's like those kind of get put on the side for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously at the start of 2023 there was Square One, but like after that it was immediately into TWC, and it was basically like that for the next 6-7 months.
Yeah, like I had a plan to run like a PPT major in 2023 that would have been huge, but I just never had the time to do it, and now I'm going to try to work on that for this year and see if I can finally get that off the ground, so that'll be super exciting.
Yeah.
Whenever I finally get ideas for that. But with that said, I think that that covers all the logistical points of the TWC that we want to cover in this episode of the VODcast. So I have an idea, kind of off the top of the head. If you guys like it, maybe we open up for a little bit of chat Q&A. If anyone has questions about TWC or wants to hear any of our particular opinions, maybe you can open this up, kind of ask a couple questions.
Absolutely.
Alternating majors between games like the Olympics.
The cycle between the Olympics. Yeah, if you think about it like that, winter and summer Olympics.
We could do something like that.
Yeah, if you think about it like that, that's kind of exactly how I'd see it. Just like giving us room to still like support like the other sports, if you want to call them that, the other games. But yeah, if you all have it's actually interesting. True. Dude, I used to get hyped for the Olympics when I was a bit younger. I was like watching them and I was like, what am I getting excited for?
No, I used to be so excited about the Olympics, and now it's kind of it's a bit sad that it's dwindling down, but at the same time it's like there's not much you can do with it.
It's like goddamn. I can't wait to watch like the 100-meter dash. Let's go.
So, Chima, that actually is kind of true. I actually remember seeing something after the Rio Olympics. Like, immediately after the Olympics were done in Rio, like, that whole building essentially became, like, immediately condemned. Not, like, officially, but it was just, like, that place got, like, essentially, like, that place got trashed and abandoned. And it was a little sad to see.
I'm trying out this YouTube feature where you can put like a Q&A in the chat and then people can submit questions. I have absolutely no idea how this works, but we are live on YouTube, so I don't know. Type in a question if you have one. This is
we have plenty of time for plenty of questions, you know.
That is true, except I definitely have an 11:59 assignment that I still have not started and will take me like 30 minutes. So let's
What is up with... Oh my
yeah,
goodness,
let's go.
people.
Free copper mine. Okay, someone did
Nothing.
submit something.
Oh.
Okay, so interesting one right here from a random guy asking, out of curiosity, how many TWC keychains were sold? I don't know the exact number, but all of them.
At least one.
So we sold
Okay,
out
well,
of
all
the
right,
stock.
low ball. At least 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
At least 3 amongst us, right? Because we all bought keychains, right?
And Star submitted awawa into the Q&A prompt. That is not a question.
That's
Well,
not a
thank
question,
you.
but thanks for sharing.
And yet, my answer is still no.
You didn't buy a keychain?
No to the Awawa.
I'm just not gonna acknowledge it.
God's
But yeah, I did buy one of the keychains.
How many did you buy, random guy? You said I wish I bought more. How many did you buy? Warranting you to them want more.
Bro is trying to be a scalper for the TWC keychains.
Bro, I
swear.
guarantee you they're gonna like end up on eBay or some bullshit.
He's got a ring. He's got like a janitorial key ring, but instead of keys, it's a bunch of TWC key rings. And he just goes
like, hold on, let me
into
just,
new
like,
Tetris
flip
lands
through them real
and
quick.
just offers them up to people at like a slightly higher price.
Yeah. One thing I will say that's crazy though is I can't believe that there was more interest in a keychain that just had the Tetrio logo on it versus the actual Tetrio World Championship keychain.
For me, it was the direct opposite.
I think it's because it's less recognizable. Like the TWC is contained within an event. If you have a Tetrio keychain, there's gonna be people who have no idea what TWC is.
For me, it was the
you got a
complete
Tetrio
opposite.
keychain.
Yeah, for me it was the complete opposite because I wanted one that specifically said like Tetrio World Championship because I didn't want just a generic Tetrio keychain.
I can see people being interested on both sides, but yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I just
Like
have a
the-
bunch of
the
I have a
ticket
bunch
book.
of tournament keychains just lying on my desk because I got one of the PK keychains and I put it like on my bag, and then after a few months it kind of just started like breaking.
So here's a fun thing about the keychains. I actually have a like never completely unpackaged Ultima Cup keychain. Right
Oh,
here.
let's go.
It just sits on my desk, because like everything I own has like keyless entries, so I don't often carry keys. So I just kind of keep my keychains like as fucking desk ornaments.
Yeah. What I found out is that like some of my friends will have some of my friends just like got a cork board and just started.
Oh yeah, and they
pinning them
pin
up
stuff on
the
there.
wall.
Yeah, I should do that, but like,
I should be doing stuff. I should be doing something like that because I have plenty of stuff I could put on something like that. But no, instead they're just like a random disparate collection randomly within my house or my apartment.
Yeah, and then we got another question from random guy kind of carrying the Q&A. If you have any TWC questions, if you want 3 kind of pillars of the final show to answer them, this might be your only chance. What's currently public about the next TWC? The only detail is that the next TWC will be happening in 2025. That's like the only kind of public detail. And then, of course, it'll still be and they'll still be ran with Puzzle Kingdom on main production as far as live goes, and will still be involved with Osk and the Tetrio team. So those are the details currently publicly known about the next TWC. Still in heavy planning stages, but you did get some exclusives like about the set qualifier spots. You did kind of get some exclusive details that we're thinking about in planning here only on the VODcast. So
Yeah.
there you go. And then we got a question from John or Dreadnought here asking what would be a realistic number for a huge prize pool for a TWC in the distant future? Like what amount of money do you think the prize pool should try to get to one day? I think this is a hard question. I think the next TWC will probably exceed 10 grand in USD in its prize pool. Probably because we'll have like more aggressive like merch promotion and all that, and we'll try and like promote the prize pool more than just having a random guy putting $20 in it every single week. Shouts to the random guy. Yeah, I feel like there'll be more stuff like that, and especially if Tetrio moves to a world with like an in-game skin economy, where like they're selling in-game skins and stuff, you kind of have exclusives like that. I can definitely see the prize pool being pushed to new limits along with like the other licensed physical merch.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say about that. But yeah, I think 10,000 is a reasonable goalpost for 2025.
Because last year was what, nearly 7,000, right?
Oh God, I forgot. And then
Check
and
on.
then we got another question from a random guy asking possibilities of crowdfunding the TWCs on off years. You mean like crowdfunding 2025 during 2024, like its prize pool? I would say just personally, I'm kind of like against this because if you think of like skin sales and stuff like that, do you really want to be selling like TWC skins like 20 months before the final event? Like, that just kind of makes it feel less exclusive, and I think overall it would sell less. Um, in terms of
Yeah.
like direct donations and stuff like that, I feel like if someone's that committed to TWC, if you do want to contribute a lot, I'd just like recommend like just hold on to some money in the savings account
Yeah,
and
they
then
just
just
have
wait
like a little nest egg in a
and
box
just wait
somewhere.
for the prize pool because again, like there could be merch releasing and you wouldn't want to run out of like contributing. Like there might be merch that you want that people would want to get and you wouldn't want to drop in too early. But I just say releasing the prize pool when the actual like main event with all the qual circuit gets announced, like in the May or the April of the year that it's happening on, is probably going to be a more likely scenario. But we will see. Again, none of this is definitive. I can mainly just talk like opinions that we're kind of having here on the VODcast. But yeah, thank you for the question. We got one from Hugh here asking thoughts on single elim finals. I can't believe we didn't talk about this yet. Oh,
That's
I forgot
actually,
about
yeah.
this. Thoughts on
um,
single elim finals. You guys want to go first? Have any burning opinions on single
yeah.
elim?
I mean, I remember like personally, especially for this, especially with the format we had, which like had later rounds be like best of three, best of five. I thought it was fine. um, like I think especially with this format, and the same format applied to an extent to Square One, which I was already like, which I'm already familiar with, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But like the final bracket in Square One was also single elim, and I know both of those were like intentional, and honestly, I think overall that's fine because uh I guess it's mainly tournament length. Like some of these sets are already long enough, and it's just like we don't need to go even further with it.
Yeah, I do agree with
Yeah,
that.
that's kind of my feeling as well. Is like, see, single elim is like, oh no, you're not gonna have a chance to redeem yourself in loser rack. But like, given how long the sets already are, I feel like you can only pick one out of the long sets or double elim. And frankly, double elim arguably causes more problems than it's worth for big tournaments. Like just the losers bracket falling behind and people not keeping
Yeah.
pace with the losers bracket and just not knowing what's going on there. Single
Mhm.
elim keeps it easy to follow while the longer set lengths keeps things interesting and allows players to make those comeback stories still happen. So I'm a fan of it.
Granted, I'm pretty sure like everyone in top 16 was like familiar with with like bracket formulas and knows how to like knows how to communicate with TOs, but like it's already going really long, and at some point it's just like yeah, it's good to have long intense matches, but at the same time the rest of the tournament like just needs to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that as well. It's just and then there's also this great part, this great point that Star brought up in the chat here, saying that they thought it was a very cool trade-off since the safety net wasn't, oh, I might get better matches than losers because if you lose, you're gone, but it incentivized players to actually adapt to their current sets and they kind of have that comeback chance even if they drop one of the sets, which I
Yeah.
which I
And I think that helped.
absolutely like agree with there.
Yeah, and I think having the multiple sets in the later rounds especially really helped with that because it's just like, oh, I lost this set and it's like, what did I do wrong here? You have like a set amount of time to think about it. instead of just like kind of, you know, hoping that like your losers bracket streak will be like flawless all the way through to the end.
Yeah, and I also just think it's just like it's based on like this whole idea of single limb was based on Square One, which was based on the World Cup. And it's just like when you're at a tournament with that high of stakes, like having all this cushioning of like double a limb makes the bracket longer, makes these longer sets less feasible. It's just like I feel like if you're playing in Worlds, like you can't kind of be babied as a competitor in that way where you get so many chances to still try and like increase your placement. Like I feel like that extra stunt cat gives you like, oh, there's this turning point here. I need to step it up. I need to think about what just happened in the last set. How can I like exploit Westel's speed that he's been using on me? How can I exploit that and get a breakthrough? Try and trip him up. So that's what I kind of think about that. It's just like, you know, you kind of make a call. It can't be so easy. You can't have so many chances to try and get to that crown. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Which double a limb kind of gives you. And one of the last questions for now, unless we get a few more entries, just thinking about time here. So this is a pretty decent watch still. Thoughts on having a 40 line or 100 line speedrun competition as a format for a sideshow? Have big names try to get a world record concurrently? That sounds like a little nightshade right there. You know what I'm saying?
But
Yeah.
also sprinting for a long time is really hard.
Yeah,
there's also
Like it's
that.
very one of the most physically
Yeah.
intensive modes of Tetris, and doing it
Because-
for long enough for an event with actual chance of people breaking records is really a big ask.
Yeah, you couldn't even see
'cause-
it like that, you know, like the physical strain as well. So like
Yeah.
whenever like Tetrio's gotten into like an ESA speedrun marathon or a GDQ, they're never actually speedrunning by playing 40 line or any of that. They're normally doing like super lobbies. So
Yeah, Blitz was the closest
Oh.
we got. The like Blitz showcase at GDQ was the closest we got to pure mechanical modern Tetris ability, and even that was very clearly stated by Zeph and I to be more of a showcase speed than like I am trying to PB right now for GDQ level speed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there was also the journey run that I was on GDQ for TC. Like
Yeah, I think Journey's like a bit different in a way because it's like, of course it's sprint, but you have like the downtime, like the forced cutscenes.
Yeah.
You have those. It's also a tuning limited game, which of course,
Yeah.
obviously the inputs per second are still somewhat comparable, but it's still kind of a slower experience. It's more about harnessing the tuning limit than any like just raw like smacking your keyboard as much as fucking possible. So I
But
feel
yeah.
like journey mode's more limited. Plus journey mode's like a 20-ish minute run on average between all the categories. And when you think about that compared to like an LTA, which is basically what a random guy is suggesting here, those usually last at least an hour to try and post
Yeah.
runs. So that's a lot of time on like high stakes. Most of them are like 4
like,
hours.
Either way, having the
10,000 line sprint, fastest completion wins. Two
Zip.
players facing off.
That's fucking crazy.
That's how, like, just thinking about it is like just straining to think. It's just straining to think about because, oh my goodness.
Oh, actually, that does remind me though. Sideshows, just in general,
Mm-hmm.
just ain't a thing. People don't be doing them, and that was something that I was going to be proposing for UC to do, and then UC fucking died anyway. But I think
yeah.
that sideshows in tournament should be more of a thing. Having side events is so cool. It gives the spotlight to players who aren't as good in the main skill, and it's just fun. I think a big thing
I'd love
about
to do
tournaments that
sides.
have been falling off recently is just like having fun segments. Like the tournaments themselves still have that degree of fun and all of that. Like it's very exciting, but like just having 4 fun segments has really been on the downswing recently. And I think like Wiley are some people who are looking to change that.
This is my perfect time to announce that next TEC bracket I'll be hosting a sideshow where we're just gonna play Toho Spell Bubble. Totally.
God
yeah.
damn. But yeah, I think with that we'll try and take one more question if we get one in the
Make it a banger.
next minute,
Make
make
it
it
a
a
banger.
banger,
Like, make
and
it a
then
banger.
and then some closing statements before we close out. First episode of the VODcast, airing weekly here on the Edge TE channel yet again. I will say, if you've been enjoying the VODcast so far and you haven't already, be sure to click down below the stream, subscribe to the channel. We'll be hosting the VODcast here every week. And also, give the episode a like if you've been enjoying it. So after we end the stream, more people can get recommended the show and enjoy it as a VOD. The
That actually
VODcast.
reminds me, like, recently I figured out whenever YouTube picks up that someone says like subscribe or like, at the bottom, like the respective button will just like glow,
Yeah. Okay.
and it's really weird to see.
We got a question from Badgoblin.
An anonymous user. It could have been anyone. We have
Anonymous
no
user on
idea who sent
Badgoblin's
this
account
question.
asking,
I have been taken over.
asking, what do you expect the impact of the next TWC to be on the TOing scene? Very interesting question. Badgoblin, how would you like to answer this one?
So what? This is a great question. Whoever gave it, I don't know, but
Man,
now-
wonderful question.
something that I was thinking about for this is there's a possibility that TWC2 suffers from sequelitis in the same way that movies do. The impact of TWC1 was that it was the first time something at this scale was being done. TWC2 doesn't have that same pull. So the question is going to be, what are the orgs doing to make that impact still felt, to get that same level of viewership and to even improve upon TWC1? Obviously, the format is going to hopefully be refined. There's going to be new players entering the scene. There's going to be the return of some old faces, but all of that isn't necessarily enough. So it's interesting to think about whether or not TWC2 is just going to hit at the same level. And if it doesn't, what does that mean for Tetrio World Championships going forward? And if it does, how do you sort of keep making the magic? How do you keep that sort of original feeling of the hype and the sort of just grandiosity that TWC brought the first time going forward into sequel?
Lots of pressure into it. I think a lot of it's going to be probably played in part of the marketing. Just like new visual theming and stuff like that, like new merch expectations to kind of go into. And while I'm finishing up the answer to this question, I will pick this next question here. Will the merch remain exclusive next year, or will previous editions return? I think that merch probably each year will probably remain exclusive unless we hold back stock of a certain item. This is just my thinking. Not anything that we discussed with the team, of course. When we get more into playing TWC 2025 later in this year, there will be more answers, especially in that event's announcement. So I'd say stay tuned for 2025's announcement about merchandise and stuff like that. But as of now, I would expect every year to be limited edition. The merchandise is designed by artists that we commission at Puzzle Kingdom, along with graphic designers that we commission as well. Osk and Glitchy had a hand in like the keychain design, whereas we have our poster artist that has been working with us consistently throughout the year. We made like the poster design that was sold on shirts and mouse pads and stuff like that. But my thoughts of the impact of the next TWC to be on the TOing scene, I think there's going to be a lot more pressure for people to elevate the quality of their events again this year, rather than like running traditional majors throughout the circuit. I think they're going to kind of use this to show off like new tech, also potentially format changes, just iterating on feedback, as well as a lot more pressure to visually make the event look better, because this one already looks so good. So that's how I answer this. Commando, if you want to chime in on this one, feel free. If not, we're getting some questions pouring in now, so might want to rapid fire these last few.
It's just for me. It's weird to think about it. Like, I'm obviously not the best when it comes to the TOing side, because I'm barely involved with that sort of thing. But yeah, of course they're gonna have to put in a little more effort on like developing this, because sequelitis, as Badgoblin said, is kind of a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in Square 1 2023.
Yeah, And I think one big thing that might like also be something to consider, like something like that will probably impact the quality or like the turnout of next year's TWC is the players.
Mm-hmm.
Because um because if it's the same 16 people in the final bracket, then it's just going to be like, oh, it's going to be another one of these, or Diao's just going to win this one again, isn't he? Like it's
Yeah.
it's hard to say, I think, because like the TOs will do everything they can, but it still also relies on like the people who participate in the bracket.
Oh yeah, for sure. How the competitive scene just develops as a whole is going to be a big factor into it too. But
Yeah.
yeah. And now these are I'm just gonna kind of rapid fire these next questions. So next one is, how does the international scene play into TWC? A lot of Asian tournaments tipped qualification,
Yeah.
especially since less Americans were playing in them. Kind of gave people like, it gave Diao like a quote unquote easier time, or just like a, I'd say an easier time because less entrants, but also like a different kind of difficulty playing against more Asian players who Diao might not play against when they're playing the American tournaments. Just like kind of a different experience in path to qualification. Latam was big in this TWC, with TML kind of competing and being involved, as well as how that all kind of shaped up. Lots of Latin American players in here. And now with EU Canon being formed as an organization, I think we're going to see more European style TWC qualification in 2025 as they rise into prominence. I see them being successful, and being kind of large enough to host majors by the time of the next TWC. So hopefully that answers your question. If you guys have anything to add.
No, you kind of hit the nail on the head there.
Perfect.
Yeah, I was
Next
pretty much what I was
question
thinking.
that I think you guys could probably say something about. Thoughts on collabing with other non-Tetris orgs for the next TWC?
I am okay. I'm hella biased because I'm also a big fan of like the grassrootsness of the Smash community and some other like fighting game communities. I just like people. If we get more people, it's gonna be more people helping out, new ideas. It's gonna be better generally. It's gonna be new pools of viewership. That's gonna be lots of things which can be good for the community. Now, this is a loaded question because just saying, hey, let's collab with other game is a lot easier than actually doing it because obviously there's going to be a lot of asymmetrical setup things which go into making the tournaments of different games happen. But if it could happen, I would be a fan.
Yeah, it could just be
Yeah.
it'd just be,
And
Commando, you're typing shit in chat. Use your voice, man.
I
Say
didn't
your
want to see.
fucking-
I didn't want to interrupt with a non sequitur because a random guy was bringing up Tetris Party as a sideshow, and I am biased towards Tetris Party. I will support that anytime I get. But for collabing with non Tetris orgs, like it would be like I think anyone we've seen a lot of people. Okay, let me take a second to just
Buzz.
get my thoughts straight. We've seen a lot of people outside of the Tetris scene talk about playing Tetris. Like there have been a lot of like YouTubers and content creators talking about like Tetris games. And so it would absolutely be like wonderful to be able to talk with people like those, and even like fighting game orgs to like work together and make more events. I mean, there's James Chen, who's not only a big FGC commentator, but also a big Tetris commentator. Granted, it's on the classic side, but I'm not entirely sure of his biases towards like guideline, but I know that there are other people like outside of the Tetris scene who still like enjoy this game and probably aren't aware that there's a competitive scene for guideline or just in Tetris in general.
Yeah, I think more that like cross Tetris or cross puzzle game pollination's possible here. Of course, classic Tetris being the bigger one, and we saw that in Square One where he did some classic showcases. We got Sharky on to commentate in one of the years, so I think that's definitely like in tune, kind of cross pollinating, especially if like there's more like Nestrio kind of like modes, something like that. Maybe there's like a Nestrio super lobby that happens in a TWC related event or something. But other non-Tetris games, I definitely see it being possible with the scale of the event. Again, it's just like a lot of coordination. And again, if these communities are interested, especially, I think it would give it some merit if they reach out to us and would love to see some like cross promotion, cross pollination there possible. So I'd just say it kind of depends on that, but I would definitely be open to it personally. I think we'd all be open to seeing some kind of content like that. It'd be super hype. And yeah, it's definitely something to consider, but again, like my main focus as an organizer would be trying to make the event better. I think I'll make this the final question about TWC. A random guy asking, will you guys co-stream this, talking about the VODcast, on Twitch? I wanted to raid into it, so I streamed a bit longer to hopefully end as y'all started, but I can't read on low sleep. So I'll just say this as well, since I've been like the main person getting the graphics like together and stuff, and like coordinating all that with like producing the show, and it is also streaming on my computer. Shoutouts. Listen, term producer can't get a break, but I'm happy to run the stream.
I just PC runs like overtime.
It's true.
Needs a chunk of that paycheck.
Hey, I'm willing to stream it. The quality just will be worse.
Let's go 720p 30 VODcast.
720p. You give me so much credit.
You know I'm trying my best, but
live filmed on an Android.
God damn. Oh my god, so true.
That's our April Fool's episode.
But yeah, what I would say is like obviously my Twitch channel is pretty well established, and like I already have a wide variety of content like going on, at least on my Twitch, like with the speed runs and then the occasional like Tetrio gameplay and stuff like that. And I've been trying to put a leg up on building up this YouTube channel here. And one of course, the big milestones that I've wanted to hit is like getting 1,000 subs on here. Obviously, like getting channel memberships and all that, going to try and grow this show. And I just think that the biggest potential that this podcast has, at least right now, is starting as a YouTube exclusive. Kind of getting people, like, because my YouTube channel died out for a hot minute. So just getting people kind of back into it. Some of you probably didn't even know I made videos on YouTube, to be half honest. So just like getting people back onto the YouTube channel, and like YouTube's VOD experience, I think is better for our podcast, because like if you tune in live to a podcast, you can actually like rewind into the show on YouTube and like see like the part of the show that you missed, and then rewind back up to the start of the stream. It has like this Q&A feature where I can like showcase questions at the top of the chat and all that. You guys can actually read the questions, we're answering it. I just think for live podcasting, YouTube is a better platform, and keeping it exclusive on here like allows us to build the watch hours that we need to like monetize the show, keep it growing, allow us to like invest into like growing the show in the future. It's just like a rather than just like a hobbyist thing, like you guys can actually catch up, and then the VODs publish automatically at the highest quality, and we can stream in a higher quality, like a higher bit rate to you guys. Just so immediately after the stream ends, it's available on YouTube in the highest quality, and you know we're gaining watch time and subscribers towards milestones and stuff, which will help this show grow to be larger, and we can do more stuff with it. We could crowdfund a camera for Badgoblin.
Yeah, that's fucked up. That's fucked up that you called me out specifically. That's crazy.
It is. It is fucked up. But
all right, much better.
His camera's dark, just like the shade you all threw at him. Oh my goodness!
Get that Sans VTuber on.
Honestly, Loki, it's not my camera, it's my piss-colored lighting. Like this
C920 is when I have a C920. That's what's running right now.
Never been the same.
I probably have the fanciest face cam in the whole community. Like, actually, Loki. I have a mirrorless camera.
I have a C920 because I can't be asked to use an actual camera or something like that. I just don't have the room.
Like, I have like a real camera.
God damn.
Yeah, it is the Stackies camera. No, this is the camera that the Stackies was on. Oh yeah, it could do better in the low light stuff. But yeah, this is my photography camera. I just use it when I'm at my desk, not taking photos, because it's a good camera. and like the like cable to plug it into my computer only costs like $20. So
Look, man, only high definition I need is of great vertical extent. That's all I'm saying.
God damn.
Oh god damn.
Commando has no idea what the fuck I just said. That's the definition of the word high, by the way.
I'm okay.
But yeah, I think that's getting close to the end of the podcast. I just wanted to bring up something completely off topic. I don't know if you guys have any of these. But
Boy.
I just want to ask you guys' opinions on this because this is one of the most bizarre things I've seen online in years. So,
I'm concerned.
hold on.
Yeah, I'm scared.
The only
HD I need is Vince.
I'm canceling the rest of the vodcast, just so you know.
Yep,
So-
this is Badgoblin's last episode of the podcast.
If this will be my
joining us.
debut and my closing appearance, if
Thank you for showing up, Badgoblin. We appreciate it. But yeah, next week we'll have a completely new host that will take over the rest of the podcast. Don't worry.
All right, so I just wanted to ask you.
Replace me.
God damn. Listen, we're keeping OGC out of the podcast. That's all I'm saying. All right, so one thing I wanted to ask, and you guys might have seen this. What do you guys think of the tweet where Love Live School Idol Festival 2 announced their global release and cancellation of the game in the same tweet?
I saw this three separate times from three different people the day it came out, and I was just like, am I reading this right? Am I reading this right?
To read this out loud for all of you. Global launch notice. We are excited to break the news to you that the global version of Love Live School Idol Festival 2 Miracle Live is launching soon in February 2024. However, we also want to inform you that the global version will close its doors on May 31st, 2024 and cease in-app purchase accordingly. We appreciate the love and support you've shown and we're committed to make these last few months an unforgettable moment.
The only thing I think anyone can say to that is, what's the point?
You don't want 2 months of a game. You're not in it for the 2 months.
Yeah, Mitsuruki also pointing out that they announced the exact date for its end of service, but not for the release. The release.
It's gonna be February 28th, and people are not gonna be
okay. You know what? No, I'm coming in with this take. Real as fuck for that. Did not surprise. Wouldn't you be more mad if they surprise you with it 2 months in?
That is true.
This is better. This is unironically better. If they were gonna cancel the game, which by the way, why bother? Why are you canceling the game after 2 months of release?
What's the point of
either
releasing
don't
it?
release it then, or find out the reason you're canceling it and fix it. Like this can't be the best solution.
I know,
just
right?
purely from a profit perspective. Less people will buy a game they know is going to die in 2 months. But anyway, I'd rather them tell me, I guess.
As a Love Life fan, I'm not surprised the JP launch was horrendous. There's a lot of things wrong with that. I remember there was like a context message that someone said alongside the tweet, and it was just like how everything leading up to like School Idol Festival 2 was a disaster.
I'm sorry. The Love Live Slay the Spire game coming out in the same
yeah, isn't this
month?
like the Switch?
What is
for
this
context,
game?
For context, I am not a Love Liver. I know nothing about the series. The only thing I know about it is like what everyone else knows about it, which is snow halation. It's been in my
I don't know
radar.
either, but I heard Slay the Spire. Now I'm interested. I'm having neuron activation
Like
now.
it's been in my radar,
Let's
and
go.
there were points where I was like, I might consider watching it, but no, I have never watched it. I'm only just all I know from it is just like outside influence, mainly Andrew retweeting stuff. But still,
Yeah,
Honestly, it's as close as I get to any anime or anime adjacent thing. So I'm right there with you.
yeah. I will say
Undertale the
something.
anime.
I will say something. I've been watching the Love Live anime. Actually, not bad. From what I've heard around the streets, the mobile games are actually pretty bad. So
I'm shocked.
I mean, not like you probably couldn't tell based on that announcement that they're really releasing a game and already shut it down 2 months later.
I'm sure it'll be a
All I'm
banger
saying is, dude,
2.5 months.
All I'm saying is, dude, if you're going to put the Love Live app on your phone, the global edition, and actually buy in-app purchases, put your clown makeup on right now, because you're going to have that virtual content for like 60 days.
Actually, Edge, you have an outfit you could give him.
You're right. You're right. If you buy, listen, I'll put this out there. If you spend over $500 on Love Live School Idol Festival 2 Global, if you spend $500 on it and you send me proof, I will mail you the clown outfit. I will send it to you.
Sign it
That's
too.
crazy.
So that will be that's
you're gonna have
to
buy another clown outfit. Too many people are gonna be sending.
That one
this.
doesn't even fit me. I was like 5'7" when I was wearing that. I'm like 5'11" now. That shit doesn't barely fits me. So you know what? You could have it. For context, I bought that costume when I was like 13 years old.
You were 5'7" when you're 13.
Yeah, I kind of had a more linear growth, you know.
Dang,
For context, Commando has his monitor just above his floor. His bed is about 3 inches off the ground. That's where he's coming.
Do I have to lay in my bed to show you how big it is? This is a
No,
full size.
Commando. We know you're really big and tall. You're huge. You're my big guy. My big.
We are
Commando.
not making this a bit. We are
Big
not making this a bit.
Commando.
We are not making
my
me.
God.
We're
See,
not making this a bit.
there's an extended bit of your death, and now we've come up with the only thing worse: being short.
We are not making me being short a bit. I swear to fucking Christ.
And with that, I think if you guys are ready, we might be able to close our first episode of the VODcast.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Tune in. Not next Friday, but some Friday in the future.
Right. We do have to announce this first off. If you guys did not hear, we are continuing Snow is Infinite because, goddamn, the venue. But yeah, we're continuing Snow is Infinite on Friday and Sunday, and MCDT Anniversary 4. I almost said 2 on accident reflexively. MCDT Anniversary 4 will be on Saturday, Austria and Puzzle Kingdom. So the VODcast cannot be on Friday. We'll be announcing more details about the next episode and the dates that we'll be streaming on.
This is just like the Love Live announcement.
God damn. We're not canceling it.
We'll have our second and final episode within the
We're going to continue it
It's
next
not going to
week.
be our final. It's not going to be our final episode. This podcast is going to run longer than any other Tetris podcast, and we are going to get content creator of the year stackies for this podcast.
If you spend $1,000 on the Love Life Gotcha app, we will cancel the podcast immediately.
Don't give them ideas. Don't give them ideas.
Bro, you're going to have Apple Orchard preying on our downfall and shit already.
Look,
Okay,
all I'm saying is, when the VODcast 2nd edition comes up the next week and Apple Orchard is out $1,000, I don't know. We might have to mail them the clown suit.
Oh, man. So, yeah, all I'm saying is, thank you all for watching the first episode of the podcast. I'm, like, extremely humbled with how many people decided to tune in. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Stay tuned on this channel. You'll see when the next episode is announced with live notification. It'll also be on, like, the 2 of 3 of our Twitters, because one of us doesn't have one, as well. So, yeah. You know, maybe we should do some kind of goal to have Badgoblin make a Twitter account. So
How many to make a Twitter account?
We can also look into other goal options and just like anything else, like just anything else would I think work better maybe.
You know, we'll think about it, but with that said, I've been Edge.
I'm Badgoblin.
I've been Commando.
And
I will be Commando still.
It's true. I'll also
Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Wait, we don't have. We need an order for this. One of us needs to say the. One of us needs to say VOD. One of us needs to say cast.
That's so
left to right, left to right, left to right, left to right.
Oh my God.
And thank you for watching the
VOD.
Cast. See
it's
everyone.
so delayed. Awful. Incredible.
That's so bad. We can't make that our closing. We have to have like an actual thing.
Oh my God.
That should be our closer every time. It's so delayed. There's such a big gap.
No,
I agree.